In this second interview, Paul, we're going to go a little more deeply into your life and your gifts. So, do you receive guidance as to why you're here and what your life's work is?
Yes, I do. I do receive sometimes quite specific guidance about the work itself that I have to do. It may be concerning an element of teaching or something of that kind. Oh, yes, I do receive guidance. Sometimes it's much more a conscious guidance, on other occasions it's more intuitively felt and experienced. But yes, definitely.
And do these come from your guides? Are you aware of who your guides are?
Well, that's one way of looking at it, yes. I mean, I'm aware of guidance I receive from beings, if you like, on other levels that I've worked with for all my life, as far as I'm aware. I first experienced them when I was about 6 or 7. And it would appear that the work I've done for the last 35 years or so, which has been in this field of spirituality and healing and what have you, that it was part of some kind of an agreement before I was born that I would do this. Yes, there's a sense of a plan being fulfilled, and the guidance comes as part of that. But I do remember, there again, as a wee child, we used to go to the cinema sometimes on a Saturday because there was no TV when I was about 4, 5, 6. It wasn't that long after the war, so we had, no television. And so we used to go and have to queue up, actually, to get into the cinema. I remember this. And if you were lucky, you had a coloured movie. The first film was in black and white, and the second one, if you were lucky, was in Technicolor. And I can remember sitting in the cinema on more than one occasion with my father and mother, watching some cowboy and Indian film, it very often was. But I suddenly had this really inspired moment. And I would be sitting there thinking, now, I've got to do something for the planet and for the world. And if I do this, I can't do this. So perhaps I should do that. And I was under 7, certainly, because we moved from that part of London when I was 7, and this was before then. There was always a sense of something important to do. I want to add to that and say that I think this is in everybody. I don't think it's exclusive to me in any sense. I think that many people, particularly when they're children, have this sense of something important for them to do. And quite right, too, I think. But it gets there again, beaten down. As I said earlier, the conditioning of life kind of obscures it, and things that we have to attend to take over, don't they? Like paying a mortgage and all the rest of it, and so on. But actually, we lose sight and the courage maybe to follow what is in our hearts. But I'm lucky in that I don't know about lucky, but maybe there's something in me that is rather able to go against the conventions sometimes. I'm very conventional in many ways, but in certain ways in my thinking I'm not. And I was able to make a big change in my life at one stage, and to follow what I thought was important, not knowing whether I'd earn any money, whether I would survive materially. I had young children at the time. It was a big thing, but I've always had this sense of something inside me as well as something around me guiding me. I have a very deep inner sense of things, call it an intuition in the real sense of that word. Intuition means to be taught from within, literally. But also I was aware of what you would call outer guidance too, supporting me, yeah.
Are you aware of past lives? Have they influenced you at all? If you are?
What, my own past lives, or
Yes.
past lives generally?
Well, let's start with your own.
Yeah, I believe that we have many visits to this stage, to this platform. Yes, and they appear to run in a sequence historically. So we call them past lives and all the rest of it. On another level, I believe they all happen at the same time, but that's a different matter. But certainly I'm aware of my own past experiences, one or two in particular. And when I'm working with other people, sometimes it's very clear that there's a that this life is a continuing part of a story that began in another historical framework.
Yes.
It can be any time ago, from 50 years to 100 years to 500 years ago, depending on what the journey is and what things have to be learned and understood and healed, really. So yes, certainly. As I say, you see it in other people in their lives, and I'm aware of it in myself, and it makes a kind of sense on a human level. Be a bit of a swizz if you came here and you only got one crack at it, and why is this guy born rich and I'm born poor, and so on and so forth. And I think purely on that basis it makes sense. But I have no doubt that we live in a multidimensional universe. We live in a universe that is replicated in many different frequencies and levels, and I think we have all kinds of lives and experiences. And there is certainly a process whereby we have a sequence of lives on this planet in some shape or form. I have personally no doubt about that. Yes, absolutely.
I wanted to ask a few questions about your gifts and how they're affected by what's going on in your life. If you're tired or stressed or weather conditions, does anything affect the communication, or however you would describe?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, I'm a human being at the moment, and of course, if I'm tired or not well, or it impacts upon my ability to do anything, and this is no different. It's not so much that it prevents the faculty, but the pure human ability to be present to do it. You can't do it if you've got a heavy cold, or mercifully I don't get them very often, but if you've got a heavy cold or something of that order, or you've had upsetting news. But I do remember some years ago, just before I was due to teach a day's course, I'd had some really bad news, very upsetting. And I remember going to do the course, and the course was very much connected with some of the things we've been discussing. And I was quite worried that I wouldn't get through it. But I did, like one does in anything in life. You get a surge of adrenaline, something happens, you get energy. It's like if you're a performer. You can often get through the performance, then you collapse in a heap when you're finished. And I'm very aware that if something has to be done, it gets done, and so on. But yes, of course, one is affected by all the normal human things that affect everybody in their whatever walk of life they follow. I would say that's true, but it doesn't impede on the ability to see or hear in that sense, or to. I've often worked in a healing way with people when I've not felt very well myself, and people find this almost a contradiction. But you can feel a little bit unwell and still be able to be a channel for other people benefiting from what you're doing. Yes. So that can be so.
So that brings us on. We haven't talked about the healing side of your work. Can you describe a little bit how the healing energy comes through you? What do people who are receiving healing say that they experience? Sorry, there were two questions there.
That's all right. You may have to remind me of the.
How does the healing energy come through you? Where is it coming from?
Well, my view of what healing is has changed, I think, over the years a little bit. Or to what we call a healer does. One thing I'd like to make clear is that no healer, in my view, no healer or indeed any therapist can cure or heal anybody else of anything. What they can do is through what we call attunement, or using your mind to step into a kind of meditative state. What they can do is generate an energy, a force through them, which can trigger in another person a healing process.
Right.
And but you this is quite natural in a human being. There are some people, if you're with them for half an hour, they make you feel better, don't they? You chat to them, you're with them, they don't even have to say much, and you just feel better by being in their presence. A child does that with a loving mother. You know, if they fall over and hurt themselves, the loving mother says, "You'll be okay," and immediately they feel a bit better. And I think that it's a natural human facility to bring loving, calming, powerful forces to another person when they need it. It's what we're here. We're here for each other. You know, otherwise we'd all come on the planet one at a time. And healing is an aspect of sharing and trying to help people. And by learning certain attunements, then of course, or ways of centering and focusing the mind and stilling actually the mind, then this facility gets stronger in the individual, and this flow of force in the individual gets more powerful, I suppose one could say. And that is healing. Healing intrigues me. I think it's the most wonderful thing that a human being can do for another human being is to help them ease their pain and to understand and overcome whatever is the problem for them. And healing is the aspect of what I do that I'm most enthralled by in all its different levels and so on.
And did that develop later?
No, really, in a way. Well, I suppose it. So did it develop? I think what I would say is that that was what I most wanted to do. Of all the things that I do, the thing I most wanted to do was to help people be better, to be well, to be functioning effectively, and so on. So it kind of was the thing that really pulled me into this work full time, oddly enough, because I wanted to make a difference for people, but so that they could be well. And I remember another medium once saying to me, you know, she didn't know what I did when she met me, and she said, you know, you should have been a doctor. Well, I think my teachers at grammar school would have told you that my academic abilities, certainly in physics and chemistry, were not good enough to remotely do anything like that. But nonetheless, I understand what she was picking up, and it was this desire in me to help people. And I think for me, whatever I do, it's within this framework of wanting to be involved in something healing, because that's what we're here for, I think.
And do you feel that other spirit beings are working with you?
Oh yes, definitely. I see them, definitely, and it depends on as to the nature of the situation, as to which particular beings it will be, as well. What particular forces are needed, but I don't have to determine that. I don't have to make a conscious decision about that. That I do the easy bit.
That's being organised elsewhere.
Oh yes, I do the easy bit. I don't have to tell my lungs to breathe. I don't have to tell my heart to beat. I sometimes have to tell my brain to think, but I don't have to do any of that stuff. And the wonderful thing about spiritual work is its essential simplicity.
So perhaps that brings us to a little bit about trance and channeling. You've mentioned the other spiritual beings who work with you. Can you say a bit about how that developed?
Yes. When I was first exploring my own abilities consciously and trying to harness them, to hone them into some kind of usable, reliable faculty. One of the things I did, I watched a lot of other people, both the good and the not so good, that worked in areas such as mediumship and healing and the various occult areas, and also pursued a lot of study and so on, studied meditative practices, various kinds and various types. And I remember going on a course for a few days, and there was this very eminent, famous medium and teacher there, very revered individual. And he said to me, you know, you work with these higher minds, as he put it, from other places and from other parts of the spirit world, or as he called it. I don't like the term the spirit world, but that's a term he chose. And then he said the universe. And he said, you need to learn how to do this in a trance-like state. Well, I was very uncomfortable with the idea, I have to say. It didn't really fit my persona to do that. And also I'd witnessed some practices around what they call trance and channeling, which I wasn't very at ease with. I thought they were anything from delusional to occasionally even possibly fraudulent, and I didn't want any part of that. So as a result of thinking about this, and then consequently I thought, something inside me said, look, you've got to try this. So I went against my sort of fears, I think, and said, okay, I'm going to try this trance channeling. And I'd been doing meditation for a long time. I was already working a lot in healing and so on. And the state of consciousness needed for this is not far removed from all those things. It's an altered state. And I found I could slip into this altered state and developed a contact with some beings that can speak through me in what they now call channeling, whatever you want to call it. And gradually, over a period of time, in fact, I set aside an evening every week for 7 years with hardly a break, with a group of people working with me to help me develop this process. And it's been very beneficial both to some people that listen to these occasional channelings, as they're called, but also to me, because I developed a relationship with some entities of what I call quite a high order, who've been able to guide me and teach me and help me understand many of the things I see. Because a clairvoyant, for example, sees many, many things they don't understand what they are always to start with. So I developed this relationship with these beings, and there is a group that meets regularly here in England with me to listen to what they have to say, and it operates on a level that I think is a good, pure level. There is nothing cultish about it. There is no sense of you have to do what you're told about it. There's nothing of that kind. It's about looking at consciousness and connections and understanding why we're here and what we can do to be better human beings. So it fits with what is channeled through me, fits very much within the general philosophy of what I think the whole point of so-called psycho-spiritual work is.
Yes. So are these the beings that would come when you're doing a healing session, for instance?
Yes, sometimes. Or if I'm working with somebody, there'll be some of them around if there's a problem or an issue I'm trying to help them with. Yes, if I'm writing, they will sometimes help me think in a certain way or review what I'm doing. Yes.
So when you go into trance, Paul, what is it like for the people who are watching?
What is it like for people who are watching me?
Well, what's it like? I want to hear both. What's it like for you?
Well, I don't know what it's like for them, but all I can say is
because you're not there.
I'm not there. I don't hear anything. It's a bit like going into an extremely deep meditation, akin to sleep, where you're conscious of being, but you're not conscious of being anything in particular.
Right.
And then at the end, you sort of wake up, if you like.
Yes.
And it's a process you develop over a period of time because there's a strong trust element in it. And I listen to the recordings, and suffice to say that there's a whole range of people that come to these groups sometimes, from every profession and background, intelligent people, good people, and they find it very stimulating, very powerful sometimes, something that helps them with their own lives, and so to me it's of some value, and I do it.
So it's
but
spiritual.
It's a little part of what I do.
Spiritual wisdom coming through you.
It's about wisdom and understanding.
And you're in a sort of sleep state, and your body is being used by.
Yes, it's a
other
process of sharing, I
entities.
think.
Yes.
I think they kind of share the vocal mechanism in me
Yes.
somehow.
Yes. I think it has to be seen to.
I think it's difficult to explain. I think,
appreciated,
yes,
isn't it?
maybe it does. And
Yeah.
it's not for everybody. I mean, not everybody finds it something that they particularly want to explore, but it can be very valuable. But, there is a parallel. We're talking about altered states for healing and for this kind of mediumship. But if you've ever performed, for example, either in the theatre or musically or whatever, there are moments where you don't really remember what you're doing. You're performing and you're in another state. It's just all going. It's not the night where all the strings break on your guitar or your voice cracks every 5 minutes or whatever it is. But there are occasions, aren't there, where it just flows. It just goes. You're in the flow. In the taoist flow of life. And all of these things are connected, whether it's being a trance medium, being a musician, being a performer, being a writer. They're all really saying the same thing. They're connecting with another aspect of ourselves or of life or with the universe or whatever. And it just works through us. So this is inspiration, really. It's the spirit coming in some way or another. And I know from my days as a singer, I remember once performing in the St Matthew Passion, and the chap playing the harpsichord, the continuo, was also a friend of mine, and he came up to me after the second evening's performance, and he said to me, "Do you know what? I had to look up twice at you on the stage in tonight's performance, because," he said, "I know you've got a good voice," he said, "but." He said, I couldn't believe it was you. And I said, that's most interesting because I don't remember doing any of that. It's almost like you're in an altered state. And you just learn different kinds of altered states for different things. We do it all the time in our lives. And trance channeling is just one particular connection that you make that can be very beneficial, I think and very useful for some people. Yes. What is it like for them? I don't know, but they do. And people that are very sensitive do feel the energetic change when something like that happens. You can feel it. The atmosphere changes, and hopefully into something more wonderful. And yeah.
Thank you very much, Paul.